What's up, Earthrockers? It's your boy Shovatar, here, talking to you about Dracula X Chronicles on PSP. And, normally, or prior to this point, rather, I've been going through the Castlevania series in release order, but due to the circumstances of, due to the existence of a port of Symphony of the Night being packaged into this game, it became necessary for me to play the main game of Dracula X Chronicles in order to unlock that port. So I figured, well, if I'm already playing this game to unlock this stuff, I might as well play this game and get footage for it. So even though this game is from 2007, I'm skipping ahead and I'm just going to post it here and now. Dracula X Chronicles is a remake, almost without any changes. There are some changes in terms of the gameplay. The biggest change is, well, let me say what it's a remake of. It's a remake of Rondo of Blood, released in 1993 for the PC Engine in Japan. Prequel to Symphony of the Night, or rather the thing that came before Symphony of the Night in the chronology. And should I let this play out? I think I'm just going to let them talk.
これは美しい。ドラキュラ様にふさわしい娘だ。さあ来るのだ。
いやよ、連れて行かれるぐらいならここで死ぬことを選びます。
その方が手間が省ける。どうせ我が主の花嫁となれば死など意味すら持たぬのだ。
リヒタ
ー。待つのだ、シャフト。
これはドラキュラ様。こんなところにわざわざ来られずとも。
その娘、我が宿敵ベルモンドと関わりがあるようだ。生かしたまま連れてこい。面白い思考を思いついた。
仰せのままに。主の命令だ。しばらく眠ってもらおう。
丁重にもてなしてやろう、ベルモンド。
So right off the bat, there's a difference from Rondo and Dracula X Chronicles. Dracula X Chronicles has more talking in it. Talking in games is something that I have a very low tolerance for, and I think that the Dracula X remake, Dracula X Chronicles, doesn't quite exceed that tolerance. The bigger problem that I have with Dracula X Chronicles is honestly with the presentation. For what it is, it looks fine. For this era of DS, PSP portable graphics, it looks fine. But I don't really like this style of graphics, and one of the best things about Rondo of Blood was its absolutely immaculate presentation. Rondo of Blood was fucking gorgeous in every single way. And the fact that Dracula X Chronicles takes a game like Rondo and basically gives it a complete soulectomy is a big problem for me. That being said, I can't give the game too much, I can't knock the game too hard for that, because the Dracula X Chronicles does include the original Rondo of Blood as an unlockable feature, so it's not like they had the opportunity to release Rondo of Blood overseas, and then when they did it, they turned it into this like ugly abomination. They did include the real game in Dracula X Chronicles as well, so it's not as bad as it could be. Is sort of what I'm getting at. Yeah, this like ugly ass early 3D is really not my jam, not my thing. There are a couple of other differences between Rondo on the PC Engine and Dracula X Chronicles. The most prominent one is that there are multiple endings. Just like in Rondo of Blood, there are two different routes. There's the normal route and the alternate route. And just like in Rondo of Blood, there are 4 ladies you can rescue on different paths through those routes? I think that works, yeah. Different paths through those routes. But unlike Rondo of Blood, whether or not you rescue these ladies gives you more than just an extra collage of an extra few portraits on the end credits screen, it actually gives you an entirely different ending, an entirely different penultimate boss, and then an entirely new third phase of the Dracula fight, if you rescue all 4 of them. And the way that these videos are going to work is that the first video, the one that's happening right here in front of you on your computer screen, is the normal route, and this is going to be the bad ending. This is what happens if you don't rescue all the ladies, if you just go straight to the end of the game, like normal. And then for the second video I post, I'm going to be going through all of the alternate route levels, rescuing all the ladies, and then showing you the best ending. So, I'm not sure how I'm going to label this video, if I'm going to say normal route or bad ending, or maybe both. I don't know. The problem with my YouTube videos, I'm just going to take a little digression here, because this part of the game, not super interesting. The problem that I'm having with my YouTube videos is that I want to convey a lot of information in the title, but I feel like my titles are simultaneously too long. Like, I'm coming up against the character limit for the title in a couple of instances. Anyway, so those are the biggest differences between Rondo of Blood and Dracula X Chronicles. Number 1, Dracula X Chronicles has uglier graphics, and number 2, it has technically more content. They have a different Alternate 5, and I've said before that one of the few problems that Rondo has is that Rondo Alternate 5 is kind of weird. It's kind of like a amalgamation of assets from previous Rondo levels, and it doesn't have a boss at the end, and the bosses in Rondo are sort of the big highlight. So it having no boss is a serious problem. And there's a new boss. There's the boss that you fight instead of Shaft's Ghost if you take the bad ending, which is what you're going to see in this video. And technically there's another new boss if you count Dracula's third form in the good ending. So those are the differences. And I have sort of mixed feelings about that, because on the one hand, like, it's Rondo, right? Like, it has Rondo gameplay. Actually, I'm going to take that back. There's a slight difference, which I'm going to talk about after this cutscene plays. It's very minor. It's the kind of thing that I feel like only I would care about, but I'll talk about it in a bit.
その無知ベルモンドまさかこんなところに仕方あるまい待て 気がついたみたいだな。
お兄ちゃん、誰？
俺はリヒター・ベルモンド。君をさらった悪い奴を懲らしめに来たんだ。
私はマリア・ラーネット。あ、もしかしてお兄ちゃん、アネットお姉ちゃんが言ってた人？
アネットを知っているのか？どこにいるんだ？
ここに連れてこられた時、しばらく一緒だったんだけど。
そうか。
私も手伝う。
何を？
悪い人やっつけに行くんでしょ？
ダメだ。おとなしく家に帰るんだ。パパとママが心配してるぞ。
いないもん。パパもママも殺されちゃった。
そうか。悪かった。
だからマリア、絶対に行くの。
それとこれとは話が別だ。 危険すぎる。
行くったら行くの。
今のは一体。さっきの男が言っていたこの子の力ってやつか。
よくわかんないけど、これならいけるよね。
ダメだって言っても効き目はなさそうだし仕方ないな。やったー。だけど危なくなったら必ず逃げるんだぞ。
Actually, I'm going to wait to talk about my minor gripe with the gameplay to talk a little bit about that cutscene. I mean, I'll give credit where credit is due. That cutscene does a better job of explaining what Maria's deal is than the Rondo cutscene does. I mean, partially it's because there's an English text translation on the screen that I can actually read instead of just people speaking Japanese and me just having to kind of try to guess from the few frames of animation. But it does give us. I mean, maybe that's close to what they were saying in Rondo. I don't know, but it's not conveyed visually the way that it is in Dracula X Chronicles either. So my very minor complaint about the gameplay that I'm just going to get out of the way now before I forget about it is that one of the best things about Rondo of Blood and Dracula X was that there was a thing you could do where you could jump and then turn around in midair like you could jump forward, then turn around in midair and like whip behind you. And that had so many super useful applications in day-to-day in regular gameplay. Dracula X Chronicles has that too, kind of. Like, I think I did it earlier just now in the werewolf fight, and I did it again there. The problem is that Dracula X Chronicles also has mid-air momentum shifting. Oh, he has pants on. Great. Ruined, worthless. I wonder if that's a US version, a US version change. I don't know. Anyway, Dracula X Chronicles also lets you like turn around in midair and attack without canceling your forward momentum, but it also gives you like Chronicles style midair momentum shifting and canceling. And here I think I have to go use the facilities, I think, but I decided that I was going to not just leave the game sitting there paused for a minute straight as I've done in the past. This is an interesting time to use an item crash. These guys are more annoying in Dracula X Chronicles than they are in Rondo. They're not as bad as their Dracula X incarnations, but you definitely have to give them more respect than you do in Rondo. Yeah, Dracula X Chronicles has Dracula X Chronicles has regular Chronicles style changing your momentum and your direction in midair, but it depends on whether or not you like tap the opposite directional key or if you hold it down. Or would it be a key on the PSP, or would it be using that little weird like embedded control stick the PSP had? I don't know. I actually don't know which one it would be. Maybe either. Anyway, point is, there's this added bit of complexity to the control scheme that I think could have been completely excised. Like, changing your momentum in midair is really not, like, I don't know. I never found very many uses for it in Chronicles or in this game, for that matter. Which is weird, because it sounds like the kind of thing that would be super useful, but I think it's just because, like, so much of the time when I'm jumping, I'm also attacking. So if I'm going to jump and attack, then by the time I'm jumping and I've finished attacking, my jump is already over, so there's no point in changing my direction. And also, you know, like, I'm not gonna I'm not gonna like jump forward if I don't have to, because unlike Dracula X, you can move in Dracula X Chronicles and in Rondo of Blood, so you don't feel the constant incentive to jump everywhere. I'm not gonna be posting as many videos for this game as I did for Rondo, because this game is not as good as Rondo, because even though it has more things in it, even though it does change a minor issue, well, actually it fixes both of the problems with Rondo, which is the underwhelming Dracula fight and Alternate 5, but it's unfortunately, the soundtrack is much worse, and the visuals are much worse. And I'm usually a gameplay first kind of guy, but this is a situation where I'm going to really make an exception, because it's just such a vast gulf it's just such a vast difference. Like, if a game is absolutely ass ugly, and then another game is like the most beautiful thing I've ever seen in my life, I sort of have to factor that in, when normally, or under most circumstances, I perhaps would not. And also, the soundtrack thing is a real sticking point for me, because they changed the Alternate 5 music. And the Alternate 5 music in Rondo of Blood is the single best piece of music in the entire series. So I don't get what the hell that's about at all. Anyway, so but to get back to the point I was making, the fact that I don't love this game the way that I loved Rondo means I'm not going to be making as many videos for it. I'm only going to be making 2 videos for Richter and then 2 videos for Maria. That's another problem actually, is character design. I think Maria's character design in Rondo is perfect, and Maria's character design in Dracula X Chronicles, while perhaps more realistic and understated, is also way less fun, and I don't like it as much. I think Richter also doesn't look as good. Richter in Rondo is sort of like this is an iconic look, and it seems like every single time Richter is reintroduced to the story, they always want to change the way he looks. Because they changed his portrait in Symphony of the Night, and now they're changing his look here, and then he has a different sprite in the Saturn version, and I don't get it. I don't get what their problem was with the original Richter design. Is it because he looks too much like Ryu from Street Fighter? Maybe that's it. So the Minotaur, here's another improvement. The Minotaur has a better telegraph for his petrification breath attack. He has sort of a... He'll like spin his axe around a bit before he does it. In Rondo, he just kind of does it. There's a very brief pause. Here, they extended it, which I think is a good change, because that was what made the Minotaur feel inconsistent in Rondo, was the fact that it's sort of like its difficulty seemed to depend very heavily on whether or not it would be winding up a petrification breath while you were trying to whip it and knock it back. But here they make it more apparent when he's going to do that. So good on them for that. I mean, if you're gonna completely butcher the game's graphics, then the very least you can do is try to improve the gameplay. You know what I mean? That's kind of like par for the course. Should be anyway. Everything else in the game, as far as gameplay, seems to be more or less the same. One thing that I did in Rondo was that there are certain paths through the castle that I never took, or that I never got footage of because they were obnoxious and because there was no reason to fuck with them. And so those areas of the castle might be different in this version. I really don't know. And there actually is another slight difference here. I'm picking up the axe, and I remember that I do this, but I don't remember why I do this. So I'm interested to see why. It has something to do with a difference in Dracula X Chronicles. So right off the bat, this part is the same as in Rondo. You start off fighting one of these dragon things, but the area right after this one here with the swinging blades. In Rondo, there's like a hunchback here, and then there's some... there's just a hunchback there. And then it goes into this part with the bone throwers, and it's all the same. I think the reason... Oh, I remember why. Okay, so the reason that I have the axe is because we're gonna come up on a section here pretty soon. There's gonna be a dragon here that I'm gonna kill. Then I'm gonna go through a hallway. Then I'm gonna go to a vertical segment. And in the vertical segment in Rondo, they have these little bone snakes, these like floating bone snakes that show up and float down from the sky and try to hit you. Dracula X Chronicles retains them as you would expect, but they changed the angle that they come at you from, where the angle, it seems, is much more vertical. Excuse me. And the Bible is just not as reliable as the axe in hitting things that are directly above you. The axe is just like fewer hearts to utilize, and you have more control over it, and it's more immediate, and you can guarantee that you have much more. You know exactly when it's going to hit the spot that it's going to hit. There's no delay or anything like that. And actually, this room here, I didn't mean to go down here. I accidentally fell down here when I fucked up an axe throw on a hunchback, and now I'm here. And this is... And if you have the axe, like I have there, then it's actually easier than the alternate path with the stairs, because it's just straight up. Just throw an axe every time the bone serpent shows up. You don't have to worry about jumping on balls. You don't have to worry about hitting hunchbacks off of balls. There are balls there, but the balls are not relevant to your pathway up the room. So actually slightly easier. I sort of went out of my way to avoid that room when I played Rondo, but in retrospect, I think it might have been smarter actually to just do it. Because the thing is, I'm gonna ditch the Bible for the holy water when we get to the Dullahan boss anyway. And I'm going to talk a little bit about the Dullahan boss, because the Dullahan boss is actually a spot where the gameplay, it's where the gameplay improvements stop. But it's a problem that I have to just kind of visually show you, so I'm going to have to wait a little bit longer to talk about it in detail. But there is a problem with the Dullahan boss. The Dullahan boss in Rondo of Blood, big headless dude with a long lance. He can, and it's basically a test of spacing. Like, you have to maintain your distance from him such that you can hit him, but his lance doesn't hit you, and you have to react correctly to when he winds up his lance attack. And it's very quick when he does it. And it's all about positioning, it's all about aggression also, because the way that the Dullahan boss beats you is if he corners you. And the easiest way to make sure that he doesn't corner you and to make sure that you can start off sort of at your at your own measured distance from him is by, before he actually spawns, entering the boss room and walking past him, so you start off the fight behind him. And so that way sort of you are immediately in control of the fight, and as soon as you do that, the fight becomes 10 times more manageable. Here, however, they decided that they needed a boss cutscene to show that the boss appears. This means that you cannot start the fight behind him, you have to start the fight in front of him. Which, quite frankly, is fucked. And here's why it's fucked. It's because the Dullahan... Okay, that right there. The Dullahan, when the Dullahan winds, lifts his lance up into the air like that, like he just did, he can do one of two things. He can either jump forward, or he can have ice spikes come out of the ground and come towards you. The problem is that the correct reaction to those two attacks is the complete opposite. For the ice spikes, you want to walk away from him. For the jump attack, you want to walk past him. You want to walk under his, run forward under his jump. There, I perfected it, which is very fortunate, because he didn't jump. I basically guessed correctly. Every time I thought he was going to ice spike, he ice spiked, and he just never jumped. If he had jumped there and regained a lot of the distance that he lost on me, then I absolutely could have been in danger of getting pinned up against the wall. And that's the thing about the Dullahan fight that sucks, is that he has the same telegraph for two different attacks, and the correct response to the two different attacks is completely different. Being able to start out the fight behind him mitigates that, because it lets you push him back immediately and prevents him from getting you close to the opposite edge of the boss arena. But when you can't start off behind him, and when you can't get this head start on controlling the positioning in the fight, then you are at the mercy of, is he going to jump, is he not going to jump? And so that is a big problem. And what annoys me about it is that basically the optimal strategy has been erased for the sake of a fucking cutscene. That's just unacceptable to me. I don't need a cutscene. I saw him show up. I know he's there. This part is also fucking obnoxious, because you can't... You basically have to dodge their shots. The way that you did that part in Rondo is you could just walk up to them and hit them, but there, because they're behind cover, you have to try to, if you just try to jump towards them and whip them, you're going to land on top of a chair or on top of the table and whip the area above their heads. So instead, you have to crouch on the table to hit them, but then jumping and crouching and hitting them, by the time you're doing that, they're probably going to get a shot off. So the smartest thing to do is to just wait until they shoot and then jump over the shot and then crouch and whip them. Which is annoying, because now the game is literally asking you to dodge bullets. This enemy, they also decided to buff the dumbest enemy in Rondo of Blood, the insta-kill painting mini-boss, which now, whenever you whip it, it sort of spins around and then surges back towards you like that. So instead of just being able to jump, whip, jump, whip, jump, whip to keep him at bay, now you have to jump, whip, walk back towards him, wait, jump, whip, walk backwards, walk back towards him, wait, jump, whip, he dies. Do that fucking however many times I just did that. Completely unnecessary. completely unnecessary to buff that enemy. That was the worst enemy in the whole game because it was a it's horse shit insta kill. It's the dumbest thing, but they decided that they were going to buff it. So for all of the improvements in the gameplay that Rondo introduced by having a better alternate 5, by introducing more bosses that are interesting to fight, they sort of dropped the ball in a couple of other areas. That being said, I mean, the changes were mercifully... I feel like they could have changed more. And the temptation to change more may have been there, but I appreciate their restraint in trying to make the game as close to Rondo as possible. They didn't... It's not like Castlevania Chronicles, because Castlevania Chronicles is like thematically similar to Castlevania 1, but obviously it's like totally different. There's 2 whole entire new levels. Like the layout of things is so different, with like a couple of, I guess what I would call environmental callbacks in terms of the way that things are positioned or the way that certain rooms are designed. But mostly it's like it's a completely different game. Dracula X Chronicles is much closer to an actual remake, where the levels are identical in most cases to the levels in Rondo of Blood. Which I appreciate. I mean, not that I would have minded more Rondo of Blood, like just more Rondo of Blood levels, but it means that I already know the levels and I already know the gameplay and I already know the bosses, so I don't have to learn a completely different game. I just have to sort of get my memory refreshed on what I already knew. So one big difference when I played Dracula X Chronicles was that the death fight, for some fucking reason, gave me like a lot of trouble. And it wasn't phase 1, it was phase 2. And I think it has something, and I'm going to see what phase 2 looks like here. And I'm going to see if I can identify, if I have a visual demonstration of the problem, rather than me just describing it, because it would be easier to see if you could, it would be easier for me to explain it if you could like see and see if he does it. Yeah, there, I think I was just trying to be too cocky. I didn't want to like overdo the item crashes, but you kind of have to fight the Grim Reaper because the scythes are just so hard to dodge. So phase 2 is like, the way that phase 2 works in Rondo is you have to you dodge out of the way of his scythe swing, then you whip him backwards. Okay, there it was. It was there for a split second, where it's like the Minotaur. When you whip him, he's supposed to go fly... There, just right there. You see that? You see how I whipped him and he did not go flying backwards? That's what now happens in Dracula X Chronicles. Sometimes, when you whip him, when the game has decided that he's started winding up his swing or something, I don't even know what it is, but for some reason, sometimes when you whip him, he doesn't fucking move. And it means that I have died over and over again on phase 2 because I'll whip him and I'll expect my whip to make him go backwards, but then he'll just do his swing attack and fucking kill me. Because I'm too close to him, because I was expecting him to be farther away from me after I whipped him. And that is something that has happened 0 times in Rondo of Blood, and happens all the time in Dracula X Chronicles, and it's the most infuriating thing I've ever experienced. Like, normally using an item crash on phase 2 of the Grim Reaper is completely unthinkable, and is completely, like, unnecessary. But there, because I didn't feel like I could reliably... I didn't feel like I could reliably react to him. Because Dracula X Chronicles inexplicably introduced this wild card element of sometimes when you whip him, he gets knocked backwards, and then sometimes he doesn't. Very bad. Very, very bad. Yeah, they're really kind of going out of their way to explain what the deal with Maria is in this game. Which, I mean, I did wonder, I did have questions about Maria when I played Rondo, but I think it was it was almost kind of funnier when it was left completely unexplained. So, as you see, as you have already seen, the difference in the shaft fight in the level 6 boss rush is that every boss gets their own little intro cutscene, their own cute little intro, just like all the regular bosses in the game. And much like with the Dullahan, this creates a problem that didn't exist before, which is that you can no longer pre-position yourself for the fights. Doesn't matter for the bat. Matters for the Mummy, matters for Medusa, matters somewhat for Frankenstein. So it's very, very annoying that's the way that it is. And again, it's a decision that's made for the sake of a cutscene, which is the most worthless reason I could think of for interfering with the way that the player plays the game. I guess oh, they nerfed. Was that 2 snakes or 3? If that was 2 snakes, then that was a nerf. But I don't know if there was a 3rd snake that I just instantly killed with the Bible, or what. I mean, if any of the bosses in the level 6 boss rush could use a nerf, it would be Medusa, and if any of her attacks could use a nerf, it would be the 3 snake attack, because that one was kind of difficult to react to, especially if you didn't have the Bible. I don't know how anyone would ever avoid those without the Bible. Yeah, see, I have to walk all the way up to the Mummy. In Rondo, you can start off the fight right next to the Mummy and just crouch next to him and whip him. Here, they make you get up and walk towards him, which is why I got hit there. Very annoying. Fortunately, he died way faster than I would expect him to. Usually, the Mummy gets off a second one of those wrapping barrages before he dies, but there he didn't. So I wonder if they nerfed the health of these bosses somewhat. I'd have to do a side-by-side comparison with the Rondo footage to know for sure. And I think this guy actually fucks me up. Let's see, does this hit me? No. Okay, maybe I'm confusing this for something else. Okay, that right there actually was a good example of the usefulness of mid-air momentum shifting. Like, you'll notice I jumped back over the lightning projectile, then switched my direction in mid-air to move forward again towards Frankenstein. But, like, that's the first time I've noticed myself doing that in a way that's useful in the entire game. And Shaft in Dracula X Chronicles, the Shaft fight is also different, in that his lightning attack is different. In Rondo of Blood, his lightning orbs could do one of 2 things. They could either drift towards each other or drift apart. And if they were drifting apart, the correct play was to stay between them. If they were drifting towards each other, the correct play would be to backflip away from them or roll away from them through Maria. In Dracula X Chronicles, they made it so that his lightning orbs always do the same thing, which is that they drift apart, then they drift apart, then they drift together again. So rather than you having to make this sort of split-second appraisal of what the orbs are doing, you know what they're going to do ahead of time, which makes the fight much more manageable. And also, he broke his Rondo pattern there. In Rondo, he goes Fire Orb, Lightning Orb, then Red and Blue Orb. The orbs like circle around in the air, like fly through the air and try to hit you. There, he went right back to the Fire Orb, because a new feature in Dracula X Chronicles is that there are some bosses who won't use certain attacks until they're lower on health. So Shaft won't do the red and blue balls that fly around towards you attack until he's lower health. And now here we are in what was my least favorite part of Rondo, in any of the my least favorite part of Rondo involved the alternate routes, but this is my least favorite like thing that you're gonna do every time, basically. The collapsing bridge. And the bridge isn't as bad as bridges in days past, but I've died, I feel like I died way more on the Dracula X Chronicles bridge than I did on the Rondo of Blood bridge, and that's because they actually nerfed the axe in Dracula X Chronicles. The axe is slightly smaller in Dracula X Chronicles than it is in Rondo. Which, to be fair, the axe in Rondo was inordinately large, and the axe is still inordinately large, it's just not quite as big. And I swear to God, I hit a bat with an axe back there, and it didn't die, which should never happen. But I think that's what happened. Maybe I misinterpreted the footage. Maybe I whipped it. Anyway, the bridge sucks as usual. And I want to say there was a problem that I had. There's some other problem that I had. I'm ignoring the key because the way that the different endings manifest themselves is that in level 7, the level that I'm in right now, in the clock tower, Annette's prison cell is hidden underground, and you can only access it by hitting these 2 switches. And you can only hit the 2 switches by using special items that the 2 other ladies you rescue give you. So the only way you can get access to Annette's cell is by... because that locked door right there, that's not her cell. If you go in there, you fight some like succubus lady or she's like the rabbit suit lady from the Carmilla fight in Rondo. And I just don't bother with it because I just don't care. I guess is I don't know. I just didn't want to fuck with it because this was actually hard. A lot of that had to do with the death fight. Like getting past the death fight was actually something that I considered to be challenging in Dracula X Chronicles in a way that it was not in Rondo. So, yeah. And also, I was under the impression that they had reduced the available meat in level 7, and they have, actually. There's 1 fewer meat in level 7, but I thought there were 2 fewer. In Rondo, there's 1 in the room with the bird and the key, and then there's another one at the bottom of the room with the 2 harpies, and then there's another one in this general area, and then there's 1 right before the shaft fight. And I couldn't find because this area is redesigned. This area actually is very different from what you see in Rondo. It's similar in theme, but it's very different in the actual specific layout. And I couldn't find the one that they put here, so I thought that the only meat in the entire level was the one with the bird, and then the one before the shaft fight. So this level actually also became kind of dangerous. Which was a case of me being sort of sabotaged by myself, because that was a suggestion I'd made in one of my Rondo commentaries, which is that level 7 has too much meat, and so here I am at a level 7 with not as much meat, and it's like now I'm suffering for my own for the thing that I said would make the level better. Now I'm experiencing it, and it's making it more stressful. But honestly, Rondo of Blood and Dracula X Chronicles both kind of have the same ideal difficulty level, in my opinion. The exception is the death fight. The death fight is very, very annoying because of that one single aspect where sometimes getting hit knocks him back, sometimes it doesn't. It just encourages you to item crash more, honestly. And the neat little touch here is that I don't have to fall down and go up the staircase to get on these little pendulums. Come on, do it. I promise you it's doable, just wait. I swear to God I can do it. There it is, yeah. You can backflip up onto these things. Which, I wonder if you can do that in Rondo. I want to say I tried doing that in Rondo, but it didn't... Maybe I kept on sliding off and falling down, or maybe I just didn't have the timing right. Or maybe I just didn't try it at all. I like the way this room looks. I like the weird skulls on the wall and like the statue. So that's because it does look different. This room also actually looks really different. In Rondo, it's like I think it's outdoors. There's like an open sky. Oh, I gotta be quiet.
Richter, どうしてもっと早く来てくれなかったの？
間に合わなかったのか。
私たちの仲間になればいいだけだもの。
アネット、助けてあげられなくて悪かった。だがお前の仲間にはなれない。俺の宿命がそれを許さない。
それなら力ずくでも仲間にするまでよ。ドラキュラ様にいただいた力見せてあげるわ。
Much like in Dracula X, the SNES game, the feature, the difference in whether or not you get to go to the bad ending is whether you save Annette. And also like in Dracula X, the SNES game, you have to go out of your way to accomplish that. It's not as simple as just getting a key and then opening a cell. And this is a more interesting way to incorporate not rescuing her than Dracula X did. Where in Dracula X, it's like, oh, she just died. And this fight's pretty cool. I like this fight. It does kind of have a similar problem to the Dualahan, where two of her attacks have the same telegraph, and the reaction to that attack is different. The correct reaction, rather, to that attack is different depending on which one it is. But there actually is a correct way to do it. Yeah, it's that one here. She can either have the bats go out, like fan out like that, or they can converge on a single point. And if you start walking forward before the bats come down, such that you will end up in the center of the room when they show up, that means that you will be in a spot that will be safe if it's the fan attack, and you'll also be moving, which means you'll have a chance to dodge the other attack that it could be, which is where the bats all aim at you and try to converge on the same spot. So, unlike the Dualahan, there is a correct solution for that. Actually, for the Dualahan fight, that's the thing, is that technically you can like move backwards to avoid the jump and the ice spike. But the problem is that if you keep on moving backwards and he keeps jumping forward, then he will inevitably corner you. So in the Dualahan fight, it's more like you just have to hope that he doesn't use that attack. Oh my god, it's Dracula. His throne has wings.
待ちかねたぞ。ベルモンドの末裔よ。
滅びよ。ここはお前の住む世界ではない。
私は自らの力で蘇るのではない。欲深な人間どもによって蘇るのだ。力が唯一の正義なのだからな。
それはお前の勝手な言い草だ。人々は同じ信念のもとで集い、そして歩んでいく。
だが人間は欲望によって発展し、信仰によって統率されてきたではないか。
人間は力だけでは統率できない。敬い、慈しむ心があるからこそ統率ができるのだ。
くだらん。どちらが正しいか、死をもって分からせてやる。
And now it's the Rondo Dracula fight again. Pretty much the same, with actually another crucial difference, another downgrade, much like how the death fight had the crucial problem of sometimes you hit him and sometimes he gets knocked back and then sometimes he doesn't. In the Dracula fight, you can't backflip over his fireballs anymore, which is a big problem, in my opinion. Because the only thing that made the Rondo Dracula fight cool, even though it was fairly like bog standard Dracula fight, was that you could backflip over his fireballs. Here that's gone. And I'm really not happy about that. Also, and this is a weird complaint to make, but I also feel like this demon is the wrong color. I feel like the demon should be more blue or purple or something, or black or like dark gray, but instead he's like turquoise. I don't know why they decided that was the color that he should be. That may be the pettiest complaint I've ever made about any of these games. But I'm gonna stand by it. They also gave him more health. I feel like he is taking more hits than he would in Rondo. And he goes down. Actually kind of hairy there for a second, because I never really properly learned the fireball attack until actually Symphony of the Night, until the intro of Symphony of the Night.
終わりだ、ドラキュラ。
これ以上はさせぬ。
ドラキュラ様を失うわけにはいかんのでな。しまった、逃げられたか。クソ、ここまで来て。
So I said something in my Symphony of the Night commentary, speaking of Symphony of the Night, which is that I'm confused about Shaft's power level. And that's like a perfect example of what I'm talking about. Shaft seems like he can just do whatever he wants. But yeah, the phase 2 of Dracula from Rondo, I never really learned how to correctly respond to the fireball attack that he does. And I think it's like you have to duck under one, then walk forward to avoid another one, or walk away from it to avoid the second one, then like jump over the third one, and that's the best way to do it. But I never really learned that from Rondo, because in Rondo, the crucifix item crash lasts so long that by the time he finishes doing that, he's like by the time the item crash finishes and I'm damageable again, he's like already done the fireball attack. There, it's a lot slower, so I had to actually respond to it, which is why I took all the damage that I did. And again, I only learned that because of Symphony of the Night's intro. Although Symphony of the Night, it's a subtle difference, but it's a very, very important one. The intro to Symphony of the Night, where Richter fights Dracula, Dracula's second form is damageable in the chest and in the legs. So you don't have to jump and whip to do damage to him in the Symphony of the Night intro, whereas in Rondo and in Dracula X Chronicles, you have to jump to hit like his chest or his head to do damage to him, and that is a gigantic difference. That is a huge difference, because it means that you are now committing a lot harder to staying where you are for a set period of time, whereas in Symphony of the Night, Richter can just whip, and then immediately like slide dash away or air dash through him or whatever, whenever he wants. So that's the normal route. That's the bad ending. I think the alternate route is much more interesting. The alternate route is more exciting. The alternate route has the new level that they created just for Dracula X Chronicles, along with a new boss, the other new boss that they created just for Dracula X Chronicles. And I'm really excited to see that and to talk about that, because I think it's a very interesting boss. If they were going to add a boss to that level, then they should make it a good one. You know what I mean? I've never heard the dub of Dracula X Chronicles in Rondo, and I kind of don't care. I kind of don't want to. The voices definitely sound different than original Rondo. So it's like they made new. So it's like I don't know if maybe they rewrote it, or they. Well, I guess they must have, because there's a new ending. There's new stuff in the game. So I guess they rewrote it and then they re-recorded certain lines for this new version. But then in the Symphony of the Night version, they just have the old Japanese voices and then new English voices. So it's like they have new Japanese voices for Dracula X Chronicles, but not for Symphony of the Night. And then they have new English voices for Symphony of the Night, but not new Japanese voices. Am I making any sense at all? Am I just like rambling? Anyway, pretty good game for what it is. Probably easier to play now with emulation than it ever was on a PSP, because the PSP, I don't know, that thing always struck me as being kind of difficult to control. But then again, I really don't know. It's just a shame about the graphics. It's a shame that it looks as bad as it does, and it's a shame that the PC engine looks so much better. And that really means that it is a no-brainer in terms of which version is better, Dracula X Chronicles or original Rondo. It's original Rondo all the way. Like, absolutely no question. They changed the music for the clock tower also in this game, and I don't know why they did that. I don't know why that was a decision they made. I don't mind the song that they changed it to, but the clock tower music from original Rondo is like really good. It has a nice upbeat energy to it. It's the kind of song that I really like. So I'm sad that it's gone, and I don't understand why they changed it. Ahaha, yep. So that's what's going to happen next time. I'm going to go the alternate route, rescue all the maidens, and then you're going to see Shaft's ghost instead of a net. Stay tuned for that. Good one. Go get him. Go get him, and move along.